The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And hello, everybody. Welcome back into SEC Talk here on the Sunday night. A few more left of the football season, but we do have some fun shows coming up. Our first one today is going to be one of two bowl previews. We'll get into the non-New Year's Six bowl games. So that's the Gator Bowl, the Texas Bowl, and so on and so forth. We will get into the New Year's Six bowl games, let their bowl games play out. And we'll also recap the SEC championship of how Georgia and Alabama went down. We'll also get a quick reaction to the college football playoff top four. We won't get into too much because I'm sure Chet's probably up. He can't bring up any of his scenarios anymore, but I'm sure
no more scenarios. It's on paper.
Yes, we have our two matchups. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I went into our college football playoff top 25. But Wade, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. It was a great championship weekend amongst all the conferences. A lot of exciting football. And, hey, we knew it wasn't going to go to chalk, right? There was going to be some upsets. I don't think we saw the one that happened, especially in this conference. We didn't see that one coming on this show. But it was a really good weekend of college football. And I think we're in for an exciting bowl season. Even with these non-New Year's Six bowl games, there's some great matchups. I can't wait to dive into them.
Yeah, definitely. Inside the conference, I know that we all talk about it, but there's also some good ones. I'm sure we'll be taking part in the Capital One Bowl Mania Challenge like we always do every year. That's always fun to do. So let's move on now to how we start off the show usually is SEC teams in the college football playoff top 25 poll. This will be the final edition. And like you mentioned, there is a lot to talk about on the show here. Number 4, Alabama. We're so used to seeing number 1 Georgia, but the Crimson Tide, they're the SEC champs, took down the two-time defending national champ Georgia Bulldogs. So Alabama vaults all the way up from number 8 to number 4. So Alabama is back in the college football playoff. They'll be facing off against Michigan. Like I mentioned, we'll get into those matchups 2 weeks from now. And then number 6, Georgia, they fall all the way from 1 to 6, and that hasn't happened since really the reality of this college football playoff that happened as an undefeated team like Florida State. We haven't seen an undefeated Power 5 conference champion get left out. Really outside of that, no movement. Missouri stays the same, number 9. 11 is Ole Miss. LSU stays at number 13, and number 21 is Tennessee. So give me your thoughts overall on the college football playoff top 25 in the SEC and how the top 4 shaped out.
Yeah, we've seen these 6 teams from the SEC almost all season. We had Texas A&M in there for a little bit, and Kentucky in there for a little bit, but these have been in here all the weeks since the playoff polls were released mid-season. So no surprise there. I think the big shocker of the weekend was Alabama upsetting Georgia. And in years past, I think that Georgia could have lost that football game and fell to the 4 seed. But with undefeated conference champions in the Pac-12 and a Texas team that beat Alabama, it just didn't really open the door for that this year. And really, it was kind of the first round of the playoff. The winner was going to move on, and the loser was going to find themselves on the outside looking in. Georgia falls all the way to 6. I probably would have put them. I guess you would have to put them there at 6 with Florida State ahead of them, undefeated. I guess it doesn't really matter. They're going to be playing each other. Yeah. Missouri and Ole Miss, we've seen them ranked pretty equally. I think that they're pretty even teams. Of course, LSU did beat Missouri, but has one more loss than the Missouri Tigers, and LSU lost Ole Miss. So I think that shakes out. And Tennessee, I think they've been a good group all year. I'm looking forward to seeing their matchup against Iowa.
Yeah, definitely excited for that. I think that really out of these 6 teams, I think that Missouri, we did not see them vault
No,
all the way to
I had them
the
ninth in the
top.
conference.
Really excited to see their matchup too against Ohio State. We'll see. Ohio State has looked, we haven't seen them on the field against Michigan. We haven't seen Missouri on the field since they beat down Arkansas. So we're in for a treat for a lot of good games during the bowl season. So this is your final 6 SEC teams that you see here in the final edition of the College Football Playoff Poll in 2023. Now moving on, let's do our reminder segment like we always do. Joe, we want to give all viewers, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of talk about the College Football Playoff, about Florida State potentially getting robbed today and Alabama sneaking their way into the college playoff, and then Texas also too. I don't know if we can claim them already being an SEC team, but if you really look at next year's college football playoff, it's 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams. And if you really look at the top 10, it's a lot of Big Ten teams and a lot of SEC teams. So maybe those are going to be the 2 power conferences moving forward. But if you have any questions pertaining to SEC football, or if you have any general questions, be sure to leave us a comment and we'll get to your comment throughout the show. Let's get into one of our fan favorite segments. I love to do this in the Bowl Show, and that is SC Fantasy presented by Mahler Bros Golf. Christmas season is upon us. So if you have anyone looking for some holiday gifts and trying to improve their golf gear or game, go on over to Mahler Bros Golf. Head on over to mahlerbros.com. Use code BELLYUP to save 15% off of your purchase. So go support our friends over at Mahler Bros Golf and Apparel. Moving on now let's go on to the SEC fantasy rules. And if you've been with us for the past 12, 13 weeks, you've pretty much seen the same rules, but it changes once we get into the bowl season. We go double down, baby. 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 defenses. Really, the only rule is we had the rule in the regular season that you can't use the same player, but since we haven't seen those players for a couple of weeks, that player is, that rule is pretty much opted out. So one player will be from the regular bowls. If you really don't know what the regular bowls mean, that's just the non-New Year's 6 bowl games. And then you have to select one player for the New Year's playoff. And just a reminder, there is going to be some opt-outs of the players. It always happens every year. So the players that you see on your screen, the next, couple of shows that you see might not be the same player that you see on our final show when we recap the bowl. So just keep that in mind whenever we do our SEC fantasy. No SEC fantasy draft recap or from last week, but we're just going to use the last regular season. I won that one, so I will be having the first pick. On this show, since we're talking about the non-New Year's 6 bowl games, that's only the rosters that will show. And then the next time that we look at the New Year's 6, we will reveal the rosters for the New Year's 6. Let's go on now to the 2 quarterbacks of who will be on our respective teams. You're going to go with the Heisman winner. I'm already going to say it, Jayden Daniels out of LSU. And then Devin Leary. We haven't seen Devin Leary this whole entire SEC fantasy season until now. So talk about Jayden Daniels' possible matchup. If not, you might be going with Nussbaum against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I feel confident either way. Whoever's starting for LSU in a matchup against Wisconsin, it's not the Wisconsin defense that we're used to. They don't have Jim Leonhard running the show anymore. And Luke, what is it? Luke Farrell? Yes, Luke Farrell has to get his. Oh, yeah, has to get his. Fickle to pickle has to get his guys in order. Has to get his recruits going to get that defense the way he likes it. So I think that LSU will have a good day offensively, I guess, against the Badgers. And if it is Jayden Daniels, this is a slam dunk. If it's not, we'll get to see the next guy in line, which will be Garrett Nussmeier. So I like the Tigers passing attack in this one. And just like Tyler said, if a player is to opt out, we'll go with the next best replacement in that position group. Just kind of how we're going about it, since there are several weeks until some of these games.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's not really any arguments for picking Jayden Daniels. I'm hoping that he plays, but if he not, I think that Garrett Nussmeier, is going to be his team potentially. Who knows if LSU, if they're going to go after somebody in the transfer portal. I mean, the transfer portal has been absolutely cooking with a lot of quarterbacks. So I'm going to go with Devin Leary. It would have been a sin for not to pick Devin Leary this whole entire season. I'm going to do it against Clemson's defense. Now, Clemson defense is definitely a tough challenge for this Kentucky team. I feel like if Kentucky is going to win, though, Leary is going to have a good game. He is coming off him against the Governor's Cup rivalry matchup against Phil. Kentucky put up 38 points. So we'll see if the offense can stay hot against a Clemson team, that really started off this season slow and then really picked it up. So that should be an exciting matchup to watch. But I'm going to go with Devin Leary out of Kentucky. Moving on now to the running backs. We got another Kentucky running back. We might be potentially spoiling our pick. Who knows? Maybe we just like Kentucky in this matchup. But you're going to go with Ray Davis, unless he decides to opt out, like I mentioned. And then Jarquez Hunter, he gets a matchup against Maryland. So talk about Davis going up against the Clemson rush defense.
Yeah, I think the Clemson rush defense is pretty talented. They've rounded into their own. But I do think that if Kentucky's going to win this football game, they're going to need to run the ball through Ray Davis and on read options through Devin Leary. So I think that Kentucky can get it done on the ground. That's just kind of their identity. If Davis were to opt out, I think the next man in line would do pretty much the same thing. So I feel pretty good about the Kentucky unit here. And if it is Davis, I mean, he's been one of the most talented running backs. I'm sure we'll see him in our finalist for running back of the year within the conference. So just kind of giving him his dues. He was a great player at Vanderbilt to start his SEC career, and then he's finished up nicely at Kentucky.
Yeah, definitely a great pick there. I'm going to go Jarquez Hunter, Maryland defense. That can definitely be shaky. I think if you are going to get Maryland, their secondary is very strong. So the way that Jarquez Hunter has been riding, especially the second half of the season, I think that's one of the main key reasons that Auburn has reached the 6-win mark. So I think that Jarquez Hunter, I think that they're going to unleash him. This is an Auburn team that needs to really put it on their running attack if they want to come out in victory against Maryland, because Maryland is definitely going to be a tough out in that bowl game. So give me Jarquez Hunter. I think that he's going to definitely be due for a big game against the Terps defense. Moving on now to the pass catchers as we move on with our SEC fantasy drafts. So we have a new face here, Ja'Day Walker of Texas A&M. We'll see how the new face offense pretty much looks against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State defense, if you saw him on Saturday, did not look very good. And then Malik Neighbors, if he plays, he potentially could go for that record, the LSU program record for most receiving yards and receptions. He already broke the receptions, so Neighbors gets the matchup with Wisconsin. Talk about Walker's matchup against Oklahoma State in that secondary. Did not look great against Texas.
No, and that's exactly why I went in the direction of Texas A&M and Ja'Day Walker here. He's quietly kind of become Texas A&M's wide receiver one. Ainias Smith is a great player, and he's going to draw a lot of the opposing team's top coverage, and that leaves Ja'Day Walker wide open a lot of the times. And he's had 2 straight performances over 80 yards, and one of them he went for 110. So I just think he's kind of a breakout star for this team. He's only a sophomore, I think. So he'll definitely be playing, and he'll be back next year for the Aggies, and he can really assert himself as the number one receiver there. And I think that game's going to have a lot of points. I mean, Walker had himself a game against LSU, and Oklahoma State's defense is just as susceptible to the pass as the Tigers. So I think he's going to be in for a good matchup here.
Yeah, I thought about picking one of the Texas A&M wide receivers, so I like that pick too. Malik Neighbors, one of the best wide receivers in college football. If Jayden Daniels plays, if Malik Neighbors plays, then it's going to be a full force on. If he doesn't, I'll take whoever wide receiver plays, whether it's Brian Thomas, whether it's Kyron Lacey. I feel confident on whatever wide receiver wants to suit up for the purple and gold against Wisconsin on January 1st. Now, the defenses. This is where you can either make or break your SEC fantasy team, and we're going to go with probably the not best defenses, really two of the mid-level defenses in the
Best
SEC, if you want to say that. Tennessee's been a roller coaster ride. LSU, if you've been on that roller coaster ride, you might throw up watching it. But Tennessee, they have probably one of the better offensive matchups that they have. They're facing Iowa. If you watch Iowa this whole entire season, they just put you to sleep if you watch them. And then LSU going up against a Wisconsin team that doesn't have one of their best runners in Braylon Allen. And also the quarterback is hurt too. So it's pretty banged up offense for both of these teams. So we're really going after those Big Ten offenses.
Exactly. I mean, Iowa set the record for fewest points, for a 10-win team. And they're a good football team, no doubt, on defense. That's how they're going to hang in there. They're going to have to really stop Tennessee, but it's hard for them to turn around and score on their own. So even though the Vols aren't the best defensively, I mean, they're going up against one of the bottom 10 offenses in the country. So I like the matchup here. I think Tennessee's got some pieces to get it done.
Yeah, I think outside of Tennessee, there wasn't really many different defenses to choose from. I agree with you. Texas A&M's defense, they've been one of the best in the SEC, but going up against Ollie Gordon, who didn't have that great of a game against Texas. If you saw him on the sidelines, he was not a very happy camper. I don't think that's going to happen again. And then real look at Auburn, I think that we both have lost confidence after what they did against New Mexico State 2 weeks ago. So you know what? Give me LSU. The last time they faced off against a Big Ten team in the bowl game, it went well. Purdue, if you just flash back to last year. So I'm throwing up a prayer and just hoping that LSU's defense can at least, go below 400 yards. I'm setting a mark. If you can do that, I'm fine with that, as long as you don't blow up my SEC fantasy team in front of my face. So I'm going to go with LSU's defense. Hopefully play one of their best games of the season and create some momentum heading into the 2024 season. So that is our SEC fantasy teams for the non-New Year's Six. Like I mentioned, 2 weeks from now, we will do the New Year's Six. So we do have one game to get to. That is the SEC Championship Recap. And our SEC Championship Recap is presented by our friends over at SeatGeek. If you are a first-time user of SeatGeek, you can take advantage of a great deal. Belly Up Sports. Use that code for 20% off of your first purchase. Wade and I, like I mentioned, we have definitely had great success with SeatGeek, using it, saving some tickets, getting some great tickets too. So definitely use SeatGeek if you're trying to go to a sporting event. Maybe you're trying to go to the playoff, the semifinals that they have, the New Year's Six, or maybe one of the bowl games. So use SeatGeek if you are. All right, let's get into the SEC Championship, how it went down. The Crimson Tide and Nick Saban rolled on over 27-24 winners against Georgia. And you remember at the start of the season, everyone was saying Alabama's not going to be good. Oh, there's no way that they get to the SEC Championship. And nope, Nick Saban does it again. That's why you never bet against him. This honestly might be one of the best coaching jobs that Nick Saban has done. I mean, really look at last year's team should have been in the playoff against Michigan, but nope. It's just crazy, how far this team has went through, the South Florida game, the Texas game. They had some close calls in between, against A&M, against Arkansas, and against Auburn. I mean, man, if they complete that play, we're not even talking about them. Yes, no. They probably could still win the SEC championship, but even if they did, the SEC is probably out of the playoff. So if it wasn't for that, Alabama wouldn't be in the position. But this game, honestly, I know the score is close, but I felt like Alabama really dominated this game. They got out to a 17-7 lead and really didn't look back from there. I think that this Alabama defense is definitely going to be a troublesome for the Michigan offense. That Michigan offense is definitely going to want to run the ball. Georgia, though, I mean, they had a great 2-year run, back-to-back national champs. I know that Georgia fans definitely don't want to hear that waking up this morning, yay, we, got back-to-back championships. But really that one loss ended their season. If you really think about it, they were number one heading this. And just like that, you lose by 3 and the committee drops you to 6. So definitely a disappointing season if you're a Georgia fan. Still a lot to look forward to next year, even with Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference. But in this game, Alabama once again back on the mountaintop in the SEC. So were you surprised at all? I'm sure that you were surprised too, because we all picked Georgia.
Yeah, I definitely was surprised. But when Alabama completed that pass against Auburn, it was letting the genie out of the bottle, and you weren't going to get him back in. I mean, I knew that if Alabama was given a second chance, they were going to go on and win the SEC. That's what my gut said. But I was like, Georgia's been so dominant for 3 years now. I think that they're hands down a better team than Alabama, but you just felt like Alabama had the momentum. They had the swagger. Jalen Milroe, honestly, if he played well at the beginning of the season, I think he would be maybe the runner-up in the Heisman race. I think he's going to get enough votes to be third because of this big victory. He really is the only Heisman candidate that had a Heisman moment. Getting his team here to the playoff. So, yeah, hats off to Nick Saban. I mean, people like to hate on him and for whatever reason, but this team was going nowhere, and they almost lost to South Florida. And Nick Saban swallowed his pride. He completely changed this offense to revolve around the run game and Jalen Milroe. Alabama ran the ball for years with Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry and TJ Yeldon and all those guys, and they didn't have spectacular quarterback play. Well, they got very spoiled as of late at quarterback. They've got 3 of them in the NFL, and I think people thought that Milroe would step right into that offense and pick up where Bryce Young left off, and that just wasn't his style of game. So they switched the offense. They got it more run heavy, and this team just looks really good. The defense has been good all year and allowed the offense to kind of grow into its own. And they capped it off with the big win against Georgia. And honestly, if I'm Michigan, I'm scared because I just think this team's got a lot of steam.
I would be very scared. I mean, you're the 1 seed, you're cheering, oh, we get to play in the Rose Bowl, and then you see out that Alabama A pop up on your screen. You're like, oh, nope. Buddy, here we go. Like, dang, we worked all that just to get the 1 seed, and then we get Nick Saban in Alabama. You get, Nick Saban among there. That is not going to be an easy treat. I know that Michigan's the favorite. They're favored by 2. Would not be surprised by the time this game kicks off that it shifts to Alabama being favored in this one. But we want to wait for this matchup to, in September, we get this Georgia versus Alabama in 2024. Another thing, the SEC schedule for the 2024 season will be released on December 14th. So on our December 17th show, we will do probably a full-on breakdown before we do our bowl preview on that. Look forward towards some of the better matchups in the conference because I'm definitely excited for next year when we get the 12-team playoff, and then we get these mega conferences, the Big Ten. You get pretty much everybody. So Alabama is your 2023 SEC champs. But don't give up on Georgia. This is just I know that they got knocked down, but this is just one loss. They're going to be right back at it. Alabama, they're going to be really good. Texas, they're going to be really good too, especially if Quinn Ewers comes back. So those could probably be your 3 horsemen in next season in the SEC. So
there will be no divisions for the championship game either. It'll just be the best 2 teams.
Yep, that's definitely like that, especially for the Big Ten. We want to see Michigan versus Iowa or something like that. But so definitely interested to see how the new SEC will look. And, we don't have the SEC on CBS anymore. None of that jingle. We're now officially moving on to the ESPN and ABC. So this will pretty much be a new environment for SEC fans moving to 2024. Yep. Let's see how we did in the picks. And Wade, not a great week of picks for you, 3-7. You definitely had, I think that you were feeling bold or something. I don't know what was going up your sleeve, but it was definitely a lot of disagreements on last week's show. It did not work out in your favor, 3-7.
I'll save my luck for fantasy.
Yeah, that's true. 6-4 for both Chet and I. So Wade, I'm sure that you're probably going to beat us in Bowl Mania. And this is how you're going to like turn.
I had to get a bad week out the way, I didn't put any money on this in real life, so it's okay.
That's all right. All right, so 6-4 for us, and then 3-7. We'll see if we can all do better in the bowl pick'ems, and that's exactly what we're going to get to. So let's go to the SEC non-New Year's Six bowl preview. That is presented by Fanatics. You can use our link down below on the screen to support your favorite sports teams, whether it's NFL, NHL. Maybe if you're a golf fan, just watching Tiger Woods playing his first tournament in quite some time this past week in the Bahamas. So use our link down there and support your favorite sports team football season. Before we get into the SEC bowl games, we got to get into America's game. I mean, we can't just skip over this. This would be un-American to not pick games. So it's the annual Army versus Navy game. And can you guess which stadium it's in?
I think it's in Philadelphia's, right?
Nope, it's in Foxborough. And if you watch the
Oh,
team in
okay.
Foxborough this today or the past couple of weeks, I just hope and pray to God that there's
Will they
had
score?
today.
Because it was 6-0 today.
Yeah. Will they score? So Army versus Navy, 5-6 for both of these teams. So I'm not quite sure if the winner gets in or not. I'm sure they do. If they're 6-6, maybe not. I don't know how that works. But
I
Army
think that
versus Navy.
they don't, because they have to have 6 wins prior to the bowl selection.
Oh, yeah,
So I think this
that's
is
right.
it. So this is a bowl game right here.
Well, this is their bowl game. So who wins this America's Game Bowl?
Army's had a good number on Navy recently. I mean, it had been a Navy dominated series. I like the change of venues to Foxborough. I think it's kind of cool to kind of rotate it around the Northeast. Of course, wherever it's going to be a sellout. It's a national audience. I really like that they play this game kind of in the award week, the dead week before the bowl games and after the conference championship. And correct me if I'm wrong, but are they both going to be in the American Conference next year?
Yeah, they are. So this will be a conference game.
So that'll be cool to up the ante. I think that's a good fit for Army. I mean, they've been traveling all over the country this year, so it'll be good to have a little bit of routine in their schedule. But this game will always be one of the best ones of the year, regardless of how they're playing. They just play with a lot of heart. I think Navy takes back over in this one. I did watch Army in person one game this year against LSU. It just seemed like they were a little bit off of how they've been the last couple of years. But honestly, this game could go either way. I expect some good defense and a close one.
It's always some good defense. I mean, this is going to be like a 10-7, 13-6 type of game. I feel like it always is. Yeah, like you mentioned, both of these teams really started off the season slow, but in the second half of the season, they really put it on. Probably not the season that Army had. Army definitely had higher hopes than Navy had. Navy, it was their first-year head coach. You face off against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame really schools them in week number 0 in Ireland, and we pretty much just forget about them. So really, both of these programs to turn around 5-6. But I'm going to go with Army. I think that Army's defense will come to fruition. Their quarterback is back and healthy. So give me Todd Monken and the boys to really put it on Navy. Not really put it on Navy. Like I mentioned, it's like 10-7, 13-6 type of games. Give me Army. Is Chet going to go with Army or Navy in this one?
Black
He's going to go with Army. So 2 Black Knights, 1 Navy. So I don't. First sake, we're probably not going to put this, on the New Year's 6, the SEC bowl games, but we just want to sneak this in because it definitely like watching this one, like you mentioned, it's the same day as whenever the Heisman Trophy ceremony is. So this is definitely a fun appetizer before that big award is given out that night. Now let's move on to the SEC preview. The first one that we have, you gotta love these bowl names too. The first one is the TaxAct Texas Bowl out there in Houston. It's the Big 12 versus the SEC. We have Texas A&M representing the SEC versus number 20 Oklahoma State, the Pokes, out of the Big 12. So do you have the SEC winning this one, or are you going to go with the Pokes?
Hey, I gotta say, these names are ever evolving, but TaxAct has had this game for quite a time now, and the Texas Bowl, I think they really draw a good matchup. I like the Big 12 versus SEC draw, and I really hope that that's here to stay as we get these new conferences. But this is a really good matchup. Oklahoma State, they can score a lot of points, but they can also let up a lot. Ollie Gordon is probably the best running back in the country. The offense revolves around him. Texas had an answer for him. But that's Texas. I mean, this is Texas A&M. We don't know where their head's going to be at. They're good defensively, but their guys might be checked out. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I just think this team wants this game a little bit more. I think Texas A&M's kind of ready to go ahead and fast forward it to next season, get the new coach in there, get some transfers in, and regroup for 2024.
Yeah, I don't see Oklahoma State's offense having that bad of a game. I don't even think it was that bad of a game. I just think that's
Texas
how good
is great.
that Texas. I mean, that if Texas plays like that, they may very well win the national championship this year. But like I mentioned, Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, I've talked about him so much on Sports Scramble in the Dog of the Week segment. I think that he gets back on track here. Like you mentioned, I think that there is going to be a lot of points in this one, even with Texas A&M, being their third string quarterback, the freshman. I think that this offense is still going to have, the answers for Oklahoma State. I wasn't really impressed with Oklahoma State's defense as of late. The 2 weeks, they give up over 30 points to BYU, give up over 40 points to Texas. So I think this is a good game, but give me the Big 12. Give me Oklahoma State. I've really been impressed with Oklahoma State, the way that they really shifted around their season, losing to South Alabama pretty handily. Early in the season, I know, got blasted by Texas, but I think going to Houston, this is going to be a lot of fans too. So, both teams are very close to the Houston area. So I think that this is going to be a lot of fan attendance, but nonetheless, give me Oklahoma State. Is Chet going to complete the sweep? Yes, he is. So they're all going with Pistol Pete to win this one in Texas. We'll change up the logos for this one, especially Oklahoma State. Moving on to the next bowl that we have, it is the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl.
Get your taxes done, people.
Yeah, get your tax. I mean, the Tax Slayer Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. We have number 22, Clemson versus Kentucky. We hasn't really Clemson on the show very much, outside of them taking down South Carolina. But usually, we see them in the New Year's Six Bowl or in the college football playoff. This year, they finished out the season 8-4. Kentucky got a huge victory last time we saw them on the field against Louisville to spoil Louisville's season, I guess, if you want to call it. But I think that Louisville will probably still be in the same bowl game that they are. So do you have the SEC get bored with their first win, or do you still see the ACC dominating this conference?
Well, I think this Clemson team has rounded into form and playing really good football at the moment. Offensively, they're not as talented as we've seen in years past. Kentucky, they really came out of nowhere and surprised us with the 38 points and an upset of Louisville. So that looked like a really good win for Kentucky. My concern with Kentucky is I just don't know if Ray Davis is going to play in this one. I did pick him for SEC Fantasy. I think his replacement running back could have a good game. But I just don't have enough confidence in that Kentucky offense. I think Clemson, their head's going to be on it for this one. It's not the game they're used to going to play, but I do think that Dabo is going to have them ready and motivated to play.
I agree with you. I think that Clemson's definitely going to come ready for this one. I know I also picked Devin Leary, but give me the Tigers in this one. Really like their defense. I think that this could definitely be a defensive battle too. Clemson's definitely going to want to run the football with Will Shipley. And, if Cade Klubnik, he can also beat you with his legs too. So this could definitely be a defensive battle. But I think that Kentucky, if they want to win this one, if Ray Davis plays and if he doesn't, they have to get the running game going. But I do think that Devin Leary is coming on in this one. That's why I picked him. But give me Clemson too. So I got the Tigers winning this one. Chet, do you have the Tigers winning this one?
Oh,
yes,
wow.
He does.
I thought he might go to Kentucky for sure.
We're SEC talk, and we haven't even picked an SEC team. I mean, we are just scrutinizing this league. But we'll see if we, on the next game, get one of our first SEC teams in the win column. And this next one is the TransPerfect Music City Bowl. Not the greatest names. Do
they do taxes too?
I think they're a bank or something. So we get 2 taxes and 1 bank, I guess. So right. Auburn, 6-6 season for them under Hugh Freeze's first season. Maryland out of the Big Ten. So are you going to go with the Tigers or go with the Fighting Turtles?
Well, this is good for Auburn. I thought they were destined for the Birmingham Bowl. So they get a Power 5 matchup here against Talia Tungvaloa, and he's been quietly putting up big numbers for Maryland. And I think he's the Big Ten's all-time leading passer now, which I was really shocked to hear. So I think this is going to be a good matchup. But I think Auburn gets it done. I think they have a bad taste in their mouth after that Alabama game. And especially seeing how it transpired with Alabama now in the playoff, I think this team comes out angry. I think it's a young team, so I don't think you have to worry about the opt-outs as much. And they're doing a really good job on the recruiting trail right now. So if they want to keep some of these recruits that they've got all the way through signing day, they need to show up and win on the national stage here.
Yeah, this could definitely be a momentum builder heading Year number 2 under Freeze. Maryland, this is a team that you definitely don't want to mess around with. They hang around Michigan. They hang around with Penn State for about a quarter, and then Penn State ran away with that game. So Maryland's not a team that's scared of nobody. But like you mentioned, you brought up a great point. I think that Auburn's not going to be in that great of a mood, especially knowing that Alabama, they were a play away from knocking out Alabama in the playoff, and now that Alabama has a chance to win the national championship. So I don't think that sits well with them. Give me Auburn in this one. I think this could definitely be another low-scored matchup. I think that, A&M Oklahoma State, that could be a high-scored matchup. Of those two bowl games that we just went through, that could definitely be a defensive battle. I think that Auburn's defense played well against Alabama. I think they're going to play well against Maryland. If I know one thing about Taulia Tagovailoa, he is going to turn the ball over. That's just how he is. It's not saying that he's a bad quarterback, but if you really look at his game logs, definitely is a turnover-prone quarterback. Maybe he runs it, I have no idea. But Tua had a big game today, so who knows? Maybe he's due for one. But I'm going to go with Auburn in this one. Jarquez Center, look for him to go off against the Terps. Chet, where is he going to go with?
He just hates outside the conference.
He just hates the SEC. He's an SEC hater. I guess so. But he's going to go with the Terps and Maryland to take down Auburn in the Music City. If I want to know one thing, this is pretty much going to be a home game. I mean, Maryland, I got to give credit to your fan base, but I mean, Auburn to Nashville. I mean,
you're going to want to trip up to Nashville.
That's a weekend trip that you would take any day of the week. So Auburn, I'm sure they're going to take over Nashville. It would definitely be a great environment for Auburn faithful to move up there. So Auburn won Maryland in the Music City Bowl. Moving on, we don't have that many games through here. We are going to the ReliaQuest Bowl. If you don't know, this is the former Outback Bowl. I think this is probably the one in the game changes ever. You had it with the Outback Bowl. You had Team Bloomin' Onion. You had Team Coconut Shrimp. You got rid of that. If this was still this, Wisconsin would be the shrimp and LSU would be the Bloomin' Onion. That's why I always wanted
this. Want my onion, man.
Yeah, so the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. The only bad thing about this is an 11 a.m. game. So LSU back-to-back 11 a.m. games. I don't think many people are going to make this trip, to be honest with you. I think that this is a great game and all, but playing Wisconsin, who is a 7-5 team, isn't definitely the luxury. I had some bowl projections have Notre Dame. I think that matchup would have been better for the LSU faithful, but it being on January 1st and the same day of the college football playoff semifinals going on, don't know how big of a game this will be fan base wise. But Wisconsin versus number 13 LSU, who you got in this one in Tampa?
Well, it's a good precursor for the playoff. So I'm excited to see it. I think LSU fans will go because of the location, and honestly, I think the matchup is a lot easier than some of the ones we saw projected. I'd rather play Wisconsin than North Carolina State or Notre Dame at this point. North Carolina State would probably beat LSU, so I like this matchup. I think it'd be cool if we see like a one-quarter cameo from Neighbors and Jaden Daniels. We'll see if that plays out like that.
Yeah, just break the record and get out.
But I don't know. I think either way, I think even if Nussmeier plays all or the majority of this game, LSU will be just fine. Like we mentioned, Wisconsin's defense just isn't the same unit that we're used to seeing. This team is 7-5. They don't have their best playmaker on offense and Braylon Allen. So as bad as they've been on defense for LSU, I think that they win this one pretty convincingly.
And I'm going to agree with this comment right here. Give me the dub for LSU. I think that's back-to-back 10-win seasons. For opt-outs or not, I think that LSU is just a better team. And Wisconsin deserves a beating for what happened in 2016 to beat us on Lambeau Field. I mean, they got to do it for boys that didn't do it a couple of years ago. So I think that LSU – their defense steps up. I will say that. I took their defense. I'm going to say it with confidence. Going to ride with them. It hasn't been a great season for the LSU defense, but I think they get it done. Like I said, I think there's some injuries going on with this. This is just like, I know this is year one for Luke Fickell, but this is a Wisconsin team that we're used to. And Chet, is he going to go with LSU? Yes, he is. And we do have a question rolling on. Do you think Jaden Daniels will play at all in this game?
My gut says no, but I think it would be cool if him and Malik Neighbors did play the start of the game, get Neighbors the record, sub Daniels out before he's at risk for an injury. But I think it's less about playing in the game. I think it's more about him beginning his preparation for the NFL. I mean, I think that as the season went on and as he's going to win this Heisman now, I think that he's kind of surged into being a top 15 pick, if not a top 10 pick. And he's got a really good opportunity to put himself above guys like J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix and some of these guys that might be playing in the New Year's Six or the playoff. And he can work on some of that individual training and just getting ready for the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to play in this one or not. Like you mentioned, he has risen up in draft boards. Early mock draft has him in the top 10. And the mock draft has him in the stadium that LSU will be playing in.
Yes, I saw that. He will be throwing to Mike Evans. That's a good way to start.
Yeah, Mike
start
Evans,
your career.
definitely better than Chris Godwin, I will tell you that. Yeah, I wouldn't put it likely that Jayden Daniels plays, but who knows? Crazier things have happened, but in the age of the opt-outs, this is a bowl game that doesn't really matter to them, especially if you're trying to move on to the NFL. You don't want to get injured and, really ruin or jeopardize losing millions and $1 million. Because if you really think about it, a top 10 pick, you make around $20 million. And outside of that, the millions cuts down to thousands of dollars. So I don't know. As a fan, I would love to see Jayden Daniels suit up for the purple, but I definitely understand if he doesn't. So we will see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we probably won't know anything probably until like a couple of weeks before LSU plays in this one. But even if he doesn't, the future starts with Garrett Nussbaum in the bowl game against Wisconsin. Moving on to one of our last ones here that we have. It is the Citrus Bowl Cheez-It. The Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Hey, somebody finally stuck around for 2 years as a sponsor.
Yes. Well, Cheez-It doesn't have the other sponsor. Pop-Tarts has the other bowl. It's the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. So that's definitely going to be an exciting matchup there. Number 17, Iowa versus number 21, Tennessee in the Big Ten versus SEC showdown in Orlando. So you're going to go with the Vols or go with the Hawkeyes in this one?
This is tough. Iowa always brings their A game for bowl games. They just take a lot of pride in it. Their fans like to get a break from the cold and snow. They get to come down to Orlando. So I think Iowa is going to be more interested in this bowl game than Tennessee. I just don't think their offense even gives them a chance. I mean, Tennessee's a pretty good offense. They run the ball well. I think that Iowa's defense will limit them. This will be a low-scoring game, but ultimately Tennessee just has way too much talent on offense to lose this one. I think if Tennessee gets into the 20s, they easily win. Might not even need that much, but I'm going to take Tennessee in this one. I'll get wacky with it. I think they're even under 20 and win. I think it's going to be 17-10.
They're going to play Iowa football. I mean, Iowa wants to play their way, and Tennessee's just going to have to put up with it. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tennessee in this one. I think that they are going to be excited to play in this one. I know this is not the Orange Bowl that you played in last year, but this is still a very good bowl game to be
Orange Bowl Junior.
Yeah, this is pretty much Orange Bowl Junior. This is, one of the top SEC bowl games outside of the New Year's Six. So I trust – really the difference is I trust Tennessee's offense more than Iowa. I think that Iowa's defense will be able to keep this one close. And like you mentioned, Iowa always gets up for these bowl games. It feels like they always do. But I'm going to go with Tennessee. Chet, is he going to go with Tennessee? Yes. That's a lot of orange on your screen. I hope that you can see all three of the logos, though. So
Tennessee will brand
Tennessee,
well
the Vols win the Orange Bowl last year. We have them winning the Citrus Bowl, getting the cheesiest of the Cheez-Its. So that is it for our non-New Year's Six bowl preview. Like I mentioned, we'll get into the New Year's Six in a couple of weeks. So the first really not many hot topics to get to as the regular season and the conference championship is done with. But Vegas line, if you are a betting man or woman, Alabama has open as a rare underdog. This hasn't happened in quite some time. I know that Alabama was an underdog last week against Georgia. Georgia was a 5.5. I was stupid to take 5.5 against Georgia. Alabama proved me wrong on wool spreads, that's for sure. But Michigan is a 2-point favorite. But I would not be shocked if everybody puts their money on Alabama, Nick Saban, especially with a month left. But another one, Bobby Petrino is returning to Arkansas. What do you think about that?
I think it's pretty interesting. especially in an assistant coach capacity. But this is a good move for Arkansas and a good move for Sam Pittman. I mean, it's a prove it year, no doubt. You're going to have a new quarterback. This offense has to click. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And Bobby Petrino, his offense at Texas A&M was really good considering the circumstances. They were down to the third string quarterback. The team had lost interest in their coach and Jimbo Fisher. So Petrino kind of reasserted himself as a coach in this conference, and I think this is a good move for the Razorbacks.
And some quarterback news, Graham Mertz, he will be returning next season for Florida. So what do you think this does for the Florida offense moving forward in next season? This might be a prove it year for Billy Napier.
Yeah, same kind of thing as Arkansas. It's good to just go ahead and have some stability. A guy that can do it if you get talent around him. He was a little bit more of a game manager for Florida, but they sure missed him over those last two games. I think if he was able to finish the Missouri game, Missouri might not be playing in the New Year's Six, and Florida State might not even have been screwed over. They might have had a loss. I think Mertz could have gotten them over the top in both of those games. So, yeah, I think this is good for Florida. You don't have to go seek a quarterback out in the portal. And if he doesn't work out, you do have one of the top quarterback recruits coming in as well. So it's a good situation to be in if you're Florida.
Yeah, definitely huge news if you're a Gator fan. We just had the SEC championship, and the SEC title game is staying in Atlanta with the new deal until 2032. I know you're not probably a big fan of this. You've been the guy who says, we all wanted it in a rotation with New Orleans, Nashville, and all that. So what do you think about the new deal staying, especially, if Oklahoma and Texas now join the conference?
I mean, I think a rotation would be kind of cool to get the footprint of the conference. Played in Texas some, played it in New Orleans, Atlanta, maybe in Florida or something as well. You kind of run out of stadiums. There are a handful of good NFL stadiums. I mean, Nashville is about to open a new indoor stadium. I would imagine that once this deal expires, that there's going to be a lot of competition from the Titans ownership to try to get that game up there. So who knows? But for now, I really think it is a good spot. Atlanta is pretty much, well, I wouldn't say it's the geographic center anymore, but with the original footprint of the conference, it definitely feels very southern. And I know that Georgia has kind of made themselves a home in Atlanta over recent years, but it was proven on Saturday that you can beat Georgia in Atlanta. So I think that provides some new hope, and I'm okay with it. I think it's better than the Big Ten playing their game in Las Vegas in a couple of years. I mean, that just makes no sense.
Doesn't make sense anymore. But I'll give you one more hot topic. Does the Heisman Trophy stay in the SEC?
Yeah, I think it does. I think this is just a really weird finish to the season. A lot of the national news was outside of the conference with what Michael Penix did at Washington, Bo Nix kind of losing the Heisman race, Jalen Milroe making a late push at it. But I think the guy that didn't play this weekend ends up winning it, and that's Jaden Daniels. But, I mean, I don't think there's a clear-cut winner at this point. There's just a lot of factors. As far as like who led their team to the playoff, in that kind of angle. But statistically, I think that Jaden Daniels will reign supreme, even though Milroe and Michael Penix had the heroics this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's going to be it for SEC Talk championship recap, and also starting on bowl preview. We appreciate everybody for tuning in on both on our Facebook page and also our YouTube page too. Dropping the likes and dropping your comments as we always do. We definitely appreciate the viewers. Next week, we will be doing our second annual award show. I think that this was very good last year. We a ton of people chime in on Twitter. We'll be opening up to our Facebook page. We don't have Facebook polls, but I'm sure that will work something to get our Facebook viewers
just
involved.
Leave a comment with your answer, and we'll tally it up.
Yep, we'll tally it up, and also tally it up on our Twitter account. I'm sure the discussion will be shortly after this. So we'll be deciding, what players and what, stuff and rewards will be out. So on Twitter, I'm going to be putting that out on Monday. Facebook, I'm not sure when that'll be out. probably going to be shooting for Monday as well. We'll be running it and probably closing it Sunday shortly before we go live on Sunday night. So that's going to be next week's show. And then the week after that, we'll get right back into our bowl preview, looking at the New Year's Six bowl games. And that'll probably be it for a little while. We're going to let the bowl games play out, and then we'll do a bowl season recap. And that will pretty much be it, unless we have an SEC team championship. Then that will probably be it for our shows in the football season. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you back here on next Sunday with our award show. Have a good week.